Disclaimer: The Jedi Murderers is a non-commercial project of fan fiction. It is not connected to the Star Wars canon or legends, and all rights to the names, places, and ideas are in possession of the Walt Disney Company. The cover art of the project serves exclusively for illustrational purposes. Would you take the lightsaber from that room again? No, no one would. You can't say you haven't been warned. No, I can't. But I can say this. If I have been deceived, if what I have left is about to be taken away from me, you will pay more than I have. Tython, 3645, BBY. Dinan was sitting on the stairs of the Jedi Temple. Years of training had made him relish every free moment. The sound of wind bending the leaves of nearby trees complemented the sounds of the training grounds. He wore a classic Jedi brown robe. Jedi trousers were known to be snow white, but that wasn't Dinan's case because of various mud stains. The ambitious adept loved to relax on the temple stairs, but on this day, he wasn't relaxed a bit. In a few hours, aspiring Jedi Guardians had trials. The only way to truly improve one's fighting skills led through the attention of Jedi Masters. The trials had been working on the principle of elimination. Jedi Masters watched the endeavors of every adept closely, but the probability of a defeated person getting trained by the very best Jedi and further standing out of the crowd bordered on the impossible. Furthermore, being selected by the Order's finest meant access to priceless scriptures only available to the most valued members. One more month and you'll have a hard time seeing anything. Suddenly a young woman's voice guessed from behind, and that wasn't far from the truth. Dinan's hair almost reached his eyebrows. Doesn't matter. After today, I don't have to see it all, answered Dinan, slightly annoyed. So you get eliminated. It's not like the world will end or anything, she said. It cannot happen. I was born for something greater. I just know it. He instantly regretted opening up this much, especially after realizing someone overheard their conversation. Leave him be, Elia. Some patients can't be helped. Sabrak Rekka interrupted their conversation, chuckling. Rekka hated Dinan. In his eyes, he was weak and whiny, and he never missed a chance to remind him of that. This time, the derisive Zabrak clearly pointed out the fact that Elia had many times provided psychological help to hospitals all around the planet. She wasn't allowed to work as a Jedi healer just yet, but that time drew near. Mind your own business, she replied without a hint of emotion. Dinan stared at him, but said nothing until Rekka was gone. Because of people like him, Coruscant Temple is a ruin. I need to take a walk. Come on, you know better than to waste your energy on the likes of Rekka. When Elia saw that her friend was done talking, she just added with a serious overtone, Good luck. Even though Rekka, overhearing his private conversation, made Dinan fiercely uncomfortable, Dinan felt better by the time of the first fight. His most inner ambitions were not to be known to the likes of him, at least not for now. Duels were happening on the square platform approximately 1 foot above the ground. The opponent was already waiting. Dinan's adversary was a bright-haired man of medium height. Jedi Masters stood in line in front of the platform while adepts gathered around it. The Iktoshi referee arrived in the middle of the platform as both fighters walked around each other in circles, scrutinizing every piece of their opponent. You know the rules. No direct hits. Once the training sword touches your rival, the fight is over. As the Iktoshi master left the platform, Dinan's opponent immediately went on the offensive, fighting with discipline and tranquility. He was barely capable of altering the adept's attacks in order to prevent the training sword from touching him. At one point, however, he blocked a strike from above, which led to a power struggle between the two competitors. Dinan managed to push the swords closer to the opponent's face. Suddenly, he vigorously yanked the swords to the side, striking the enemy in the face with his right elbow, leaving him in shock. Blood started to pour out of his nose. The sight of the bleeding colleague shocked Dinan as well, but there was no time for hesitation. Just as he reinitiated combat, his fear completely vanished. The opponent ended up off balance, his emotions breaking loose, and giving Dinan the upper hand. Feeling the confusion, pain, doubts, and even dread of his adversary, Dinan almost didn't need to think about his actions. Fueled by emotions, everything went with the flow of his desire. Seeing his opponent's position led to a calculated course of action, which was executed flawlessly and effortlessly. It took only 3 steps forward until Dinan's sword ended on his rival's neck. After winning the first trial, Dinan decided to discuss with Elia the curious phenomenon that occurred during the fight. She spent most of her time in the Jedi library, so finding her wasn't a challenge. When I hit that man, I felt all of his emotions. I sort of drained energy from them. It helped me make and execute decisions. Is it a normal thing? Elia looked surprised, even concerned a little bit. I don't know. You should talk with a master about this. Some consular, probably. That thing, it happened to me before when I was younger, but without such intensity. I haven't paid attention to it. Also, I haven't realized. He paused for a moment. Realized what? How much I need it. It feels like some sort of psychic window to endless opportunities, endless options. From what you have told me, I gather this whole process is triggered by some sort of instability, psychic contents. Students here are balanced, at least when it comes to fighting anyways, which means you won't be able to use it. My future is not fighting Jedi. I'm going to fight thugs, maybe even the Sith. Their fear, anger, doubts will make them vulnerable. Yet, I won't get any real training. You've seen it. I would have lost even the first trial if it wasn't for that thing. Both of them stayed silent for a while. I can't share this with anyone other than you. This emotion thing wouldn't go well with them. Elia sighed. In theory, you could have a career even without trials. Your new powers would make it possible. But if they find out you don't fight the Jedi way, you will be expelled. You are not going to push me to confess everything to the council? Wondered Dinan. She sighed again. You have waited your whole life for something like this. There's no way I can make you give it up. I'm not even sure if I want to. The next duel was against Rekka. At first, this reality alarmed Dinan a lot, because Rekka, despite everything, likely wouldn't offer any emotions or instability throughout the entire combat. People were gathered, and the referee approached. In just a few seconds, the fight would commence. Thoughts in his mind whirled around like a tornado. In utter panic, the corner boy just couldn't think straight. Facing anyone else, he somewhat wouldn't mind losing the fight. But Dinan faced Rekka. As the enemy got closer, Dinan unknowingly gave in to every single feeling that was currently trying to manifest itself. His emotions had now focused solely on Rekka. Feelings of low self-esteem played a pivotal role as well. Dinan battled with the perception of inferiority for as long as he had been a Jedi adept. Now, in his eyes, he wasn't just a weak initiate. He was also a failed initiate, an outcast, and a freak. Without the newfound abilities, Dinan at least had a solid place in the hierarchy of the Jedi Order, but now he felt like he had lost the ground beneath his feet. He didn't belong anywhere. Suddenly, the young Jedi found out that defeat is not the only possible outcome. Not anymore. The Masters noticed the fire burning within, and they tried to intervene, but it was already too late. Dinan charged with such ferocity that Rekka only managed to block 3 strikes. 2 of them were directed toward the head, and 1 for the right leg. Then, Dinan spun, and a strike from the right side opened Rekka's skull. Later that day, Dinan sat on the stairs of the temple once more. All soothing sounds disappeared. People looked at him either in fear, disgust, or pure confusion. They've seen a dangerous outsider, someone to stay away from. Only one person still looked at him the same way as before. "Is it true?" Elia asked with sadness in her voice. Yes. The fact she needed confirmation of such a public event made things even more hurtful. He let down a person that would rather trust him than everyone else. "Will you please defend me before the council?" Dinan was summoned by the Jedi Council to answer for his deeds. Elia, despite her disappointment, agreed to come to his aid. She wanted to argue with him, but her friend had had enough on his shoulders at the moment. They stood before the entire Jedi Council, inside the very core of the Jedi Temple. A huge circular room with a high ceiling and a round table built in the center embodied modernity and elegance. Calming colors on the verge between brown and orange complemented the light blue that was on the majority of the walls, table, and the 7 seats, which were situated against the arched entrance. 3 chairs were put nearer to the left side of the room and another 3 to the other side. The 7th seat was situated right in the middle and was meant for none other than Satil Shan, Grandmaster of the Jedi Order. "Let's not waste time on the formalities. Dinan Wane, do you realize your actions could have caused the death of a gifted future Jedi?" Yes. The Grandmaster's eyes gave the impression of a desire to burn a hole through his body. "Why did you act the way you did?" I don't know. My memories are blurry." Satil's face instantly turned skeptical, but also a little confused. "My intentions were focused on winning the trial, but it is more complicated than that. I know I didn't intend to stop my sword from hitting Rekka, but I would never hurt anyone willingly like that." Elia noticed Satil's expression getting even more disapproving and intervened. "Grandmaster, if I may, please speak. I believe my friend's deeds are mainly the product of recent events in the hostile environment he has been exposed to. Can you elaborate?" Satil requested in a less hostile yet deeply concerned tone. Elia gazed into Dinan's eyes with uncertainty, then concluded, "No, only he can." Dinan sighed and, after a momentary hesitation, he confided in the council about everything, including his newly discovered ability. Elia stood witness to everything. "The council will evaluate your defense. Until then, you are allowed to leave," concluded the Grandmaster, failing to hide traces of troubled astonishment in her face. Both of them tried to pass the time by walking through the complex passages of the temple. It took hours for the council to reach the verdict. "Do you think I'm going to get expelled?" asked Dinan. Elia took her time with the answer. "You spoke honestly, from the heart. That is something the council will acknowledge. I shouldn't have revealed so much to them. I don't trust them. This is going to end badly. Have faith in the Force. Your honesty may yet save you. Don't consider it a weakness." "Well, what is it, if not a weakness?" Dinan continued worrying. When they were finally allowed back into the chamber, the entire Jedi Council was on its feet. "Dinan Wane, you are expelled from the Jedi Order, effective immediately," decreed Satil with the straight face of a judge, leaving them both speechless. A needle falling to the floor could have been heard among the crushing silence that occurred. Are you serious? After everything I have told you? You have spent half a day judging me, just to expel me in the end? This is..." "Please, leave. We are done here," the Grandmaster responded. Her request sounded more like an order. Dinan turned on his heels and left the room in a hurry. Elia bowed out of formality and followed. They walked down the stairs leading to the entrance hall of the Jedi Temple. "I can't believe it. It doesn't make any sense." Elia wasn't angry, yet Dinan had never seen her being closer to it. "It must make sense to them," he stated, slightly ironically. "It doesn't. If the Jedi won't find a place for you in their ranks, the Sith will." both stopped in front of the main entrance. These things are not my biggest concern, at least for now. Then they remained silent for a moment, lacking words to say. So, this is it. Funny how life changes in the blink of an eye. All the plans we had. Denan managed to finally speak. Stay in touch, just in case you need help. Thanks, but I think I'll have to sort this mess on my own. Goodbye. Elia nodded in understanding. Goodbye. Sadness enveloped the former Jedi adept as he approached the nearby shuttle. Birds were still singing in the trees as the sun slowly set down on the beautiful rocks of Tython. The sun was setting down on him. Chapter 2. The career in the Jedi Order was officially over. Denan Wynne needed a new plan. The only family he had was his hated father. Returning back to him wasn't an option. Denan had to get on the ship to Coruscant and try to find luck there. The ticket price set him back hard. Joining the Republic's poorest was, at this point, inevitable. The first thing that came to his mind was working as security in a nightclub or a bar. The military didn't provide a solution either. One day, I'm going to risk death on the battlefield, but as a Jedi, not as a trooper, Denan thought. The sense of importance just wouldn't allow him to join the military as a regular soldier. As he said before, he was born for something greater. Getting a job on Coruscant's surface had been pretty much impossible without knowing the right people, so he tried his luck a couple levels beneath. Fear, misery, and sadness consumed Denan from the inside, but it couldn't stop him from carrying on. After a half day of wandering, Denan finally found the bar where the owner searched for security personnel. The business had a fair share of customers. Humans, as well as aliens, were drinking, gambling, and having intense discussions all around the bar. The young man getting closer to adulthood each day would certainly enjoy all the colors from the neon lights and reflectors. If only he had an actual place to return to. Life on the street lurked nearby. One can't enjoy swimming in the sea if he is about to drown in it. My name is Wynne. I came for a job interview, Denan said as he approached the Twi'lek bartender. You might as well turn around and get lost, replied Twi'lek as he scrutinized him. When the bartender realized that the newcomer was not about to take no for an answer and just leave, he disappeared into the room behind the bar. After a moment, the bartender returned with a bald man in a dirty undershirt. Please, Mr. Wynne, follow me, said the man. Denan followed him to the room behind the bar. Please, sit. The man pointed to the black couch that was attached to the wall and wrapped around the entire room. Thank you, Denan answered a little angrily after the warm welcome he got from the Twi'lek. So, you would like to be a security employee? Asked the manager and pointed with an open hand at Denan to demonstrate his confusion. Yes. Have you seen the men in the corners of the bar? Yes, repeated Denan, still annoyed. I will beat them up right here, right now, if it's going to get me a job. Well, you can probably understand why I don't believe you. The man dragged a chair from another corner of the room and sat on it. Denan wanted to continue convincing him, but the manager just raised his hand to shut him up. Even if you could, this job is not only about beating people up. You need to look menacing. You need to have the muscle to push drunks around, and you look rather skinny. Who are you anyway to have such outrageous claims? I'd rather not say, but no one is looking for me, Denan said. After that, he paused for 10 seconds and then just repeated, I need a job. Where do you live? Asked the man a bit more seriously this time. I have some credits to afford a cheap hotel, but only for a few days. His face perhaps revealed more than he intended to, because the next thing the manager said was, You can sleep here for some time. We can even get you some food, but you are to be spending the early mornings preparing the bar for the next shift. I would need to think this through. Suit yourself. Subsequently, he let Dinan walk away from the room and shouted at the barman, "Give the lad some shots on the house. He might be staying here to clean up." Dinan sat at the bar staring at the familiar blue-colored liquid before him. It had already been his third day preparing the quarters for another night, where people had lots of partying but few reasons to celebrate. The couch was somewhat comfortable. The bald manager had also given the young ex-Jedi some food, but not enough to prevent him from having to go to the food market. His mind suddenly wondered what would happen if he tried to continue Jedi training unofficially. "Please, Elia, you have to find a way to pass me the study materials. The library system would find out quickly if something was amiss. Sorry, Dinan, you're on your own." Despair took hold of him as he poured blue liquor down his throat. Suddenly, life in the military didn't sound so bad. It would provide the status and necessary credits to achieve a comfortable living. Nevertheless, the time to risk losing one's life on the battlefield still hadn't come. Tomorrow, I'm going to check whether any security company is hiring, Dinan thought. Life as a private security employee didn't sound bad either. He could carry a vibroblade at all times, and wages were more than decent. But second-tier security services were mostly run by thugs, and that's what he would eventually become. It seemed that the chance to end up as someone decent didn't exist. Getting a job at a top-tier security company was unlikely, even for an ex-Jedi student. Then, there were the Sith. Joining them had never been an option, but ideas like obtaining Sith knowledge had been creeping in his mind for some time now. Looking for Sith knowledge meant risking jail, but at least the forbidden scriptures were somewhat available in comparison to the closely guarded Jedi materials. "Thinking about a new job?" An unidentified voice had spoken from behind. Dinan turned around. "Yes, but how do you know?" The voice belonged to a Bothan in a black vest. He was in his 40s, and for Bothan, the stranger had a somewhat friendly face. Dinan certainly imagined his kind to have more aggressive, animal traits. As Dinan waited for the answer, the stranger seated himself on a free single-leg chair next to his. Then the alien leaned toward him and stated, "Mr. Winne, we know quite a lot." Dinan's eyes sharpened. "How do you know my name?" The stranger paused for a dramatic effect. "I know the owner." "You should see your face," he laughed. "Anyway, Mr. Periak wanted me to give you this. Make sure you read it alone, though." After that, the man just walked away. "You know this guy?" he asked the barman. "Never seen him in my life," the bartender replied, cleaning the glass while watching the stranger leave. When the last customer left, Dinan readied the bar for another day, laid on the couch, and opened the letter. "Mr. Winne, we have been watching you since you have been expelled from the Jedi Order. Our sources say you are a talented Force user. We have decided to contact you because you may prove useful to us. We are offering you a life with a noble cause. Credits and dignified accommodation. Most importantly, we are almost sure you have considered buying Sith knowledge on the black market. Work with us, and that won't be necessary. You would be provided with the materials you need, and perhaps even more. Start taking long walks in the morning, and you will get another letter. This one must be burned. And now, a little bit of necessary coercion. We have leverage on everyone we contact. Don't try to hurt us." In the morning, Dinan indeed set off for the walk. He knew the danger, but curiosity got the better of him. Curiosity and hope. Hope for getting his life back on track. "I'm not doing anything illegal, and there is nothing too risky about finding out what's going on," he tried to convince himself. For 3 days he went on a morning stroll, and for 3 days, nothing happened. On the 4th day, a monk-like person approached him, claiming to be a preacher of the Force. An old man offered him a book, but Dinan declined because he looked like a member of some kind of sect. The preacher was, however, very persistent, which provided Dinan with the confidence that the letter he had been searching for could be hidden somewhere between the pages. The assumption was surprisingly correct. Inside the book, someone had left a message. Dinan again waited until everyone left the bar, cleaned up, and opened the letter. "We appreciate your interest. The Brotherhood of the Force has a residency near you. Be there at the same hour you received the book. Burn the letter. Don't worry, the sect is just providing the cover. Denon stood in front of a steel door leading to the Brotherhood's quarters. The entrance was located in a standard lower middle class apartment area. Gray dominated everything around. Gray pavements, gray walls, and even gray trash bins. Higher level streets were decorated with holographic trees and colorful screens. Here, people had different priorities, keeping themselves in decent living conditions. And for the most part, they had success. The streets were clean and quite safe. Residents who found themselves in trouble could ask for help from local social organizations that offered aid and counsel. For the majority of citizens living outside of the core, this was something completely unknown. "Please, come in," said a voice through an intercom before Denon had a chance to ring the bell. In the hallway stood a dark brown table with several pamphlets with titles like "Love the Force and the Force Will Love You," and "How the Force Led Me Out of the Dark." Denon walked into the main room where wooden chairs sat in front of a small stage with a brown pulpit. After several minutes of waiting, the door behind the stage slid into the wall. "Come in," spoke the voice of an unknown man. Denon walked into the room, realizing he had stepped into the kitchen. The sideboard was made of a cheap type of wood, just like everything else, but the walls had numerous built-in cooking machines. In a corner stood a middle-aged man in a white shirt, trousers, and shoes. He had a freshly shaved face and light brown hair. Near the sideboard was a dining table, which was covered in dozens of papers. Sincerely answer every question. Lies can be exposed with ease. Denon sat down, took a pen that was left on the table, and started filling. The questions asked in the documents seemed strange. Do you like to stare into the fire? Have you ever stolen something? Do you often see clouds shaped like animals? It took 3 hours to answer everything, all while the unknown man walked around the room, watching him the entire time. To your left is a bedroom. Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning. The next day, Denon found only another message. You have passed the test. You may join us in the service of the helpless and save many lives from suffering and death. But we are warning you. Goodness is the last thing good people desire to have. In the sideboard, we have left a case with 2 lightsabers. Take the one closer to you if you are interested. If you are not, leave both. P.S. Burn it. Denon searched the sideboard and found the silver case containing 2 lightsabers. He lifted the hilt closer to him and activated it. Dark purple plasma appeared at lightning speed. It was one of the best lightsabers he had ever seen. How did they get it? He asked himself silently, in absolute amazement. Brown animal skin was implanted into the sides for a comfortable and firm holding. The skin was probably faux, yet smooth and blatantly luxurious. Denon took 3 swings and then returned the weapon to its case. Despite not having a very successful start of a new life, he had options. There must have been a way to become a skilled Force user without risking everything. The current situation sort of reminded him of the military question all over again. The former Jedi had many days ahead, and every one of them could be used for pursuing dreams in a safer manner. However, as he watched the street from the opened main entrance, he realized the decision had already been made for him since the very first day of his life. The situation simply did not provide more than one option, even though it seemed otherwise. Every normal person would walk away. Every rational person would walk away. Walk away and live. Walk away and live. Denon whispered his final thoughts silently as he stared into nothingness. Somewhere deep down in the young man's soul resided conviction. Conviction that this was his moment and no other waited for him. The decision of a lifetime. Denon turned around. Chapter 3. A train hovered 4 feet above the railway. The entire railway system was a magnetic field composed of ebony, shiny rectangles that were also capable of forming one large audiovisual screen. Warnings, announcements, advertisements, and more the government projected on these little black bricks. Passengers couldn't find peace from corporations offering any and all kinds of products, even in the dark tunnels of Coruscant's most vital infrastructure. If, for any reason, the train had to stop between two stations, screens wasted no time to inform everybody about anything they needed to be informed of. A turquoise door slid to the side and people started pouring in. Denon managed to find himself a place to sit, despite the crowded wagon. With both hands, he gripped the silver case, knowing very well what's inside. Walking around with the fancy lightsaber would, at lightning speed, alert local enforcers. He needed a means to conceal it, and the case that was left on the table was the safest option. Wrapping the weapon in some cloth or hiding it under a shirt would be way too dangerous, and he wasn't carrying any sort of bag with him. The case also contained the second lightsaber. Leaving it on the table in the headquarters of the organization that was meant just for cover felt strange and unsafe. Denon wasn't happy that the new job hadn't even started and he already failed to follow the instructions twice. "I do things my way. That's what I do," arose in his mind. After a couple of minutes, the young ex-Jedi was struck by second thoughts like never before. Questions like, am I really this crazy? What have I gotten myself into? Was this mess necessary? Swarmed his head as he tried to foresee the upcoming future. Then, all of a sudden, he felt a completely different onerous feeling. It happened right away from one second to another. He felt watched, followed. His body started to tremble whilst his heart rate increased. Subsequently, a mild case of dyspnea had emerged. No matter how much air entered his lungs, it wasn't enough. Physical as well as psychical malfunctions caused awareness and suspicion. Current life situation, as crazy and dangerous as it had been, couldn't have pushed him into this condition. Neither fear nor anxiety could have been behind this state. Or could it have been? "I am being watched. I am being watched," Denon whispered himself nervously and kept checking the people around. He looked to the left, noticing a concerned old lady and an uninterested worker. Then he glanced to the other side, seeing a Tagrata lawyer that pretended not to see him. The train reached its next stop. Without hesitation, Denon rushed out of the wagon, even though it was more than an hour's walk to the bar. "It's just in my mind. It's just in my mind," he kept repeating and simultaneously turning around to expose any potential pursuers, but always with the same result. Denon saw either civilians scared of him or just not caring at all. Shortly after heading down a less crowded street, everything went silent. A few more seconds and everything turned black as well. Elia had been summoned for consultation with Master Luna Avon. Among all the masters, he was the only one that was something like her friend. Many times, she saw herself as his future Padawan, but the council wasn't very keen on an informal partnership between a master and a student. So it was highly unlikely that Elia would be assigned to Luna. The door to the counseling room was made of luxurious wood, fostered by sliding steel framing. She subtly gestured with her hand and the door opened. On her left, two blue walls made of data archives worked as some kind of a second entrance. Past them were two oval chairs and the same shaped table right in between them. There, the young woman saw her favorite Jedi Master sitting in one of the seats. The man had a friendly-looking face and curtained brown hair. He also belonged to the youngest Jedi ever to achieve the rank of Master. This time, however, Avon gave the impression of an old, troubled man. "Thank you for coming, Elia. Please, sit down." The unusual tone of his voice made her uneasy, but she sat down without asking any additional questions. "Thank you. What I'm about to tell you won't be easy to process, but I believe the sooner you know, the better." After a brief pause, she replied, "I am listening. Your friend Denon. We are convinced that he has been kidnapped." Elia leaned back in the chair, her shocked eyes slowly filled with tears. She stood up and walked toward a huge window next to the chairs. The light of the evening sun was falling on her brown hair. "The Sith?" she murmured through the hand covering her mouth. "Most likely," answered Avon. "How is this possible? The Master surely knew this could happen." "There is word." The Jedi nervously paused in the middle of a sentence. "There is word the Council withdrew all the secret enforcers tasked with watching over him." "What?" Elia turned around, not believing her own ears. "There is a possibility the Council seeks to uncover the entire network of the Sith operatives by tracing them." "A bait." Elia breathed in surprise, sadness, and disbelief. "Leaving Dinan on the streets forced them out of hiding." "We have to start searching for him." "Elia," Avon tried to intervene. "Help me," pleaded the girl with a weakened voice. "This is bigger than you and me. We can't just go looking for him." "You're my friend!" she nearly yelled. Luna got caught off guard by that sentence. He stood up. "Yes, I am your friend, and I cannot do anything." Sobbing, Elia covered her mouth again and headed for the exit. "One more thing." She stopped by the door and looked at him. "Please, stay focused. The Order needs people like you, now more than ever." Dinan returned to his senses on a small spaceship. The only solid clue that led him to that realization was from the calming sounds of engines at ease. His limbs were bonded to a coffin-shaped surgical table with 5 mechanical legs. 4 of them were located near its corners, and the 5th one was in the middle. Fearful, Dinan tried to look around, but the steel shackle made it impossible to raise his head. The abductors restricted any movement to his limbs as well. When he tried to at least observe the sides of the room, a sharp pain surged through his skull. It felt like 1,000 needles thrust into his brain. The initial sensation hadn't been far from the truth. Onto his head was attached a white robotic helmet with lots of outgoing cables, eventually joining into 2 bunches. Subsequently, they entered a computer-like board half-circling the interrogation table. Suddenly, its legs began to move Dinan into a standing position. The weight of his body rested solely on the steel shackle that was attached to the neck, causing him to severely asphyxiate. No amount of kicking, bashing, or trembling could ease the unbearable torment. Fortunately, after a short struggle, the end of the table folded upwards, providing support for his feet. Dinan breathed life into his lungs, and for the first time he realized that 2 men were standing silently near the closed door. He was unable to pay any attention to it because of the severe disorientation. An annoying but catchy song jingled in his confused mind. In less than a second, Dinan's state transitioned from sleepiness to terrifying focus. His head had risen up from looking at the floor and targeted both captors with eyes that were widened with shocking dread. The abductors were an aggressively looking Weequay in a green camouflage uniform and a human clad in a simple black shirt, trousers, and boots. The latter one had 2 guns pinned to his waist and something resembling a thermal detonator. His tousled, medium-length hair was black as well. "The old white machine on your head is technology banned a very long time ago because it may as well break the very fabric of society. The Republic is giving the worst life sentences to anyone who has anything to do with it, but we have it anyway. The machine stimulates the user's brain so he thinks and feels anything the operator wants." As his colleague spoke, the man in black walked behind the computing crescent. Most of the supercomputer's surface consisted of various buttons, levers, and diodes, but its middle was dominated by a huge blue touchscreen. Inside a folder, he browsed various programs, then simply tapped on one of them, and Dinan ceased to exist. Pilaran Jator was dining on a fine lobster in a restaurant located aboard a luxury cruise spaceship. On the other side of the table for 2 sat a wonderful tanned woman in a red dress. From the huge windows, they observed the aggregation of stars colored in every tone of orange. In a blink of an eye, it was Dinan Wene who enjoyed a flow of existence. Just not a very desirable one. "What the?" "Now, you surely want to know how it ends." Weequay grinned. "But first, you must tell me how someone like you got 2 top-tier lightsabers." Dinan, scared to death, had difficulty grasping what was going on. Yet, he understood one thing very well. It was time to stay silent. He gathered all his available strength and braced himself for whatever hell they would unleash. "I was worried you'd say that," commented the torturer, almost joking. "Eller, now." Jerem Fael sat handcuffed to a public light post. "No!" The man screamed as a fist of the Mandalorian bounty hunter, armed to the teeth, pointed in his direction. Flames discharged from the vents above the knuckles. "Please, please, no!" Dinan nervously shook his head, broken by merciless evil that machine behind him embodied. He couldn't believe the suffering for which he braced himself had actually been unleashed. Sometimes people assume that hints of the future provided by intuition are far-fetched. That happens especially when the outcomes are undesirable. In this case, the tortured also convinced himself precautions taken after refusing to speak were unnecessary. They weren't. The residual sensation of the burned skin stayed even after the program ended. Weequay bent closer to Dinan, like it could help the prisoner to hear him better. "The lightsabers. Where did you get them?" He once again shook his head in refusal, this time not intending to beg for mercy. Flames once again embraced his virtual body. Dinan groaned but faced the pain surprisingly well. Only a fraction of the suffering remained with him after he returned to reality. The resiliency of his soul was extraordinary. Dinan kept his mind sharp and tried to counterattack by messing with the operator's guns by using the Force. "Leave that be," warned Eller with almost a parental intonation, and sent him back to the flames. Dinan finally met his breaking point and started crying. "Who are the people that got you these lightsabers?" yelled Weequay. "Stay strong. You still work for them, and you are still alive," he thought. A single teardrop fell out of his left eye. Dinan considered for the first time that he was about to die. The end, however, still had not come. If the torturers went after the group that contacted him, then the letters were probably true. For the first time, Dinan felt like he was an important part of something. Something meaningful, something greater. Time for life's last battle had arrived. Payment! It was payment! The lightsabers were payment! The abductors glanced at each other in minor surprise. For what? I did some things. In return, I wanted the lightsabers, among the other things. What did you do? A Twi'lek slave. She ran away. I found her. I brought her back. Her name? The interrogator stared at him doubtfully. Sonia. Sonia Weaver. What does she look like? He instantly put forward another question. Allaire stood in the corner of the room with folded arms and slightly widened eyes, barely breathing. The man in the black studied every facial expression and every movement of his body. Blue eyes, green skin, small nose. She had only one earring. From where did she escape? Some usurer, Street E30158. You are lying! Shouted the torturer, getting more and more frustrated as the former Jedi didn't offer the answers he was looking for. I am not lying. Please, please trust me. Family. It was the usurer's family. They gave me the lightsabers. You can find them. The Weequay glanced at his partner. No, whispered Dinan, tension slowly building inside him. No. Both of the capturers had stopped talking to him. Allaire approached the board once again. No! Dinan yelled like never before, but it did not help. He was once again sent to the place of hopelessness and charred skin. The kidnappers tried to get information out of Dinan for another hour, but he just kept crying and pleaded melodramatically. The pauses between the burning were almost as horrifying as the torture itself. Knowing what's to come crushed the soul to its very limits of desperation and suffering. A few times he flirted with insanity by silently singing children's songs. The desperate smile provided some form of an escape. Dinan nevertheless always came back to his senses and stuck to the made-up story. Screams, crying, and begging were supposed to portray the image of a broken person who didn't withhold any information anymore. It also worked as a useful coping mechanism that made the pain more bearable. No matter what hell they unleashed, their heartless efforts resulted only in more emotional reactions. When the time finally had come and Dinan's poor soul faced the verge of disintegration, Eller injected him with poison. You should be dead in 20 minutes. You know what you have to do to get the antidote." He had no idea what was going on, but the remains of his consciousness with the deployment of all strength left accomplished to receive the message. Somewhere deep within his soul, Danon felt a sense of pride and even happiness. He made it to the very end. They couldn't hurt him anymore. What's more important, he made it to the end as a victor. Elia Lucis nervously walked around the windowless briefing room. Through years of devotional practice, she had become a prototype of a Jedi student. However, at just 18 years of age, she was not aware of it. The Jedi Academy recently embodied stress and doubt because the Council needed as many Jedi as possible without sacrificing the quality and reputation of the Order. The Cold War raging between the two galactic superpowers catalyzed a stressful environment filled with constant worry. The Jedi needed to be ready for a full-scale war, but it would seem the more they tried to achieve battle readiness, the further it got away from them. Every improvement only cast light on other insufficiencies, and the crushing distress made the organization's structure incredibly fragile. Elia was no exception. Thoughts of inadequacy haunted her as well. Questions like, "Am I not good enough? Are my skills inferior? Do I bother them?" ran through her head on a daily basis. Her successes eased the pressure of these doubts, but they were never truly gone. Out of the hollow projector that was placed upon the long metal table appeared an image of a Pawan. He was dressed in a red robe with a big streaky collar, veiling the top as well as the sides of the head. The color of his robe, nor the dark red encircling Pawan's eyes, were recognizable from the blue blurred image. What the young woman did see had been a bald alien with periodic furrows rounding his entire head in a vertical direction. The upper lip on the right side of the man's mouth partly revealed sharp teeth because of a wound caused by a laceration. The injury manifested by the scar forced the lip to be permanently uplifted. The sight of the man made the girl slightly flinch, but she immediately became aware of her inappropriate behavior and took full control of herself. It seemed he noticed, nevertheless.
"My name is Fido Ties, your new master,"
said the alien in a monotone voice. "It is a great honor," Elia gasped happily. Her stiff professional mask faded away because of a sudden rush of joy. The significant moment overwhelmed her, but once again she managed to take control swiftly and precisely. "Master," she added in a calmer manner. For the Jedi Adept, there was no greater sign of success than being assigned to a personal master. This only demonstrated the level that Elia had been as a student of the Force.
"Good. I will contact you through your holocom soon. Until then, continue with your training on Tython."
"Yes, Master." Ties wanted to end the call right there, but his new Padawan suddenly blurted out, "Master, forgive me, but—"
"Yes?"
"My friend, Danon Wene, he has been kidnapped."
"So I have heard,"
the alien stated in a monotone voice. "It must have been the Sith. We have to find him."
"The Republic's finest enforcers are doing everything they can, naturally with the full support of the Jedi Order. We will speak again once you learn to control your behavior."
The transmission ended. Elia couldn't believe it. Her friend got kidnapped and it seemed that no one cared. She didn't even know whether her new status of Jedi Padawan existed. "Now you have really done it," she whispered. Everything she worked for felt endangered. The confused girl left the room, almost crying. Danon's soul floated on the border between the world of matter and the world of the Force. "Some patients can't be helped," echoed in his head. "And some even more," he replied to the void. The reaction didn't make any sense, but it made sense in the language of altered consciousness. The sentence expressed the perception of reality in which the very concept of help differed from the help that he actually needed. People couldn't provide aid because they were of a completely different origin than he was. Danon wasn't like other people, and that was a good thing. This way his psyche processed troubles that were caused by his abnormalities and weak spots. "How did the procedure go?" "Good. Post-traumatic shock will last. but it can be dealt with. Thank you. Denon opened his eyes, but his vision was blurred. He could only see the silhouettes of a person dressed in white and, astonishingly, a hooded Jedi. The white spot walked away to be replaced with a black one. The results are pretty good, the man in black said. Denon's breath and heart rate intensified. He could almost see clearly when two figures noticed he was awake. Then, faintness returned. It took many hours for him to fully wake up, but once he did, he noticed that the mattress had a wavy shape and was made of a comfortable yet artificial black substance. In the corner stood a silver humanoid robot, silently observing. It was a little creepy since the machine eyes were continuously focused on the moving Denon without saying a word. The sleeping chamber was located opposite the interrogation room. Denon needed to lean his back against the wall because a panic attack almost made him faint again. His heartbeat physically hurt. He turned right and exited the ship through the main corridor. Denon realized he was on a space station, his mouth opened in awe. Amazement, however, followed an eerie sense of entrapment. You, he muttered. Yes, I am me, sarcastically confirmed Eller, raising eyebrows in amusement. Anger and bestial hostility squashed the fear within. Denon rushed toward the torturer, trying to punch him with his right hand. Eller bent down, efficiently dodging the attack. Then he grabbed the attacker's left hand and spun himself around with it. Meanwhile, a hooded Jedi in a dark brown robe approached them. The mysterious man stretched out a right hand in the direction of Denon, who was screaming in pain due to his twisted arm. You can release him, he said, and Eller instantly let go. Denon turned around, ready to continue fighting, but then suddenly an unknown soothing feeling washed over him, and the most primal hostility vanished. Who are you? Those of whom you are looking for, the Jedi said, while continuing to soothe Denon's mind. Liar! These are exact copies of the letters you've received. Eller handed him over the messages. Denon still had a hard time not attacking the man, but he grabbed the letters and realized they were probably telling the truth. Why have you done this to me? He lamented in confusion. We had to make sure you wouldn't talk if you were to be interrogated, and you almost didn't. The Master Jedi pulled down his hood, revealing the face of a masculine middle-aged man with brown hair. And we warned you, Eller added. Almost didn't? Your thoughts exposed you. The machine monitored impulses in your brain. From them, we put together various words you thought of. We not only tested your will, but your psychological being. This is insane. No, this is professional, Eller interjected again. Even if what you are saying is true, you can't push people who are willing to work for you to the brink of death, Denon bitterly opposed. The Jedi approached him and out of the blue hit him in the face. The boy fell to the ground with a slight nosebleed, but the only reaction given in return was a glare in calm yet pure hatred. You seem to function quite well. Stand up. You'll understand sooner than you think, the Jedi concluded. Then he continued, I am Master Noil Ray. The gentleman you have met earlier on the ship is Eller Trines. Our organization doesn't have a real name, but its working title is simply Murderers. Denon's eyes sharpened. Murderers? Why murderers? Our purpose is to eliminate the most dangerous enemies of the Order, of the Republic, Eller explained in a dead serious tone. What? Denon asked, not in anger or hostility, but pure confusion. Up until this day, you probably thought the Jedi were peaceful, law-protecting guardians of the galaxy. It's still mostly true, but sometimes the Order must be unaffected by vague values, Noil added. Unaffected? Vague values? Denon couldn't believe his ears. Justice can be blind and slow. The Order must have the means to protect itself and others with efficiency and power. Denon paused for a while, then just said, Take me to Coruscant. Denon waited in the co-pilot's seat when the man he met at the headquarters of the Brotherhood of the Force approached him. You were the psychologist I met on Coruscant? Yes. They asked me to talk to you one last time before you leave. I'm not going to join you. Dinan refused again. Why do you despise us so much? Haven't you always done things your way as well? Dinan stayed silent for a while before replying. Even the Jedi Order must respect the law. Otherwise, we are just... murderers? The psychologist asked, and after a short pause continued. Let me show you something. From his pocket, the man pulled out a holocom. The activated projector showed a Rhodian. This man pays 300,000 credits for the head of any Jedi in his solar system. Several bounty hunters have already been paid. Next time, it could be Elia. Dinan looked into the psychologist's eyes, not knowing what to think or say. Nothing is going to change. You will become a Jedi. You will be a guardian of the helpless, and you will answer to the Order. The only minor difference is that you won't be bound by ideals that cannot be respected anymore. Become a Jedi murderer, Dinan. Chapter 4. Dinan exited the ship once again. The psychologist followed right after him. The men still waited outside the ship. Dinan remained silent for a moment and then just nodded. For the first time, he saw Master Ray almost smile. Thank you. There's no time to lose. Eller will show you to your room. That is all for now. Noel remained there with the psychologist named Arenda Caventus. What do you think about him? Asked the Jedi Master. Mr. Winay showed great determination and willpower. Although I wonder, how did the Order manage to see this hidden potential? Now Master Ray actually smiled. Hidden indeed. The Order may appear clumsy and incapable, but that is mostly because we want to be seen that way. Eller and Dinan walked through one of the many space station corridors. The complex passages were heavily utilitarian. Every distinguishable element held some irreplaceable function, contributing to the solely practical yet charming aesthetic of the space station. Admirable construct, huh? This levitating fortress could go face to face, even with a small destroyer. Dinan remained in hostile silence. I still hate you for what you did. Make no mistake by thinking otherwise, he stated afterward. I always make that mistake. Some people, for some reason, tend to not like me. Yeah, you are really funny. Listen, Dinan blurted out, just to be interrupted the very next second. No, you listen. People suffer every day. You at least had a choice. Want to be a tough guy? Act like one. Dinan wanted to argue even more, but couldn't find any words. After a very short pause, Eller added in a bit more calmly, This is no place for pettiness or pity. They continued without a single word. When they arrived in front of the sleeping chamber, Eller gave Dinan a card to the room and a purple pill. Everything you need is in there. Take the sleeping pill as soon as you can. Confused, Dinan had so many questions, but his new colleague refused to elaborate. Don't ask anything, just do it.
Mr. Winay, it is time to wake up. You are expected in the main briefing room,
spoke a humanoid robot watching over him once again. The accommodation was nothing fancy. The purely metallic apartment, on the other hand, provided the first decent sleep since leaving Tython. Even though the steel bed had been sunk into the ground, reminding him of a prison cell. Why do these people always put you here? I wouldn't even fall asleep if it wasn't for that pill, Dinan complained.
I am here to watch over your well-being, sir.
You are here to be removed from here.
I am sorry to be of disturbance, sir.
He dressed up, approached the door, and swiped the security code on the right. His clothing of choice consisted of a dark undertunic, trousers, and high boots. Behind the door stood Eller already waiting for him. If you are done talking to the machine, there is something a bit more urgent. Lead the way, Dinan sighed in irony. They got to the lower level using an elevator. The corridors were silent, but quite busy. People walked around at a fast and efficient pace. These people are not ordinary bureaucrats. Eller momentarily turned as a bright-haired woman passed by. They are our link to the Republic. With them gone, it takes only a few officials doing some funny things on the other side, and bam! We are just a bunch of criminals. This could happen any day. Great. Even Noyle doesn't have contact on the other side? Dinan wondered, surprisingly letting go of his anger for a man walking next to him. Eller smiled, briefly raising his eyebrows. Nobody knows. A huge silver gate closed as both men entered the hangar, containing more than a dozen brand new Republic fighters. Beautiful, right? Yes, Dinan agreed in admiration. Even more fascinating was the view of space behind the gigantic oblong gate. The see-through plasmatic barrier with a blue hue prevented the enemies from getting inside and also kept its occupants from getting sucked outside. The colossal entrance of the space station had an almost exact shape like the wide doors separating the greater rooms and corridors. In a time of imminent danger, the steel wall reinforced with cortosis completely cut off the interior of the station from the rest of the galaxy. You can take one of these for a test flight once you have some spare time, which happens to be pretty much never. They walked past the hangar into another labyrinth of brightly lit corridors. You were going to be put into something like a trance. I don't know much about it. This is Caventus's area of expertise, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that you will be neither asleep nor awake. Your soul as well as your body are severely exhausted. Even right now, you are using all of your energy, including the Force, to process everything that happened to you. The fact that you are still alive is astonishing from the perspective of the physician as well as that of a Jedi. Nevertheless, we have to get you to a state of heightened relaxation, otherwise you might collapse. Does that heightened relaxation feel relaxing? Dinan asked skeptically. No. They left the hangar and walked for another couple of minutes, until Eller stopped by one of the entrances. He swiped with the ID card, scanned his hand on the black platform, and typed in a PIN. The door slowly opened. From now on, the medical droid inside will take care of you. Dinan nodded. Numerous shelves and wardrobes powered by artificial intelligence were built tightly beside the walls of the poorly lit room. After roughly 30 seconds, the cross-hatched floor suddenly separated near the right corner from its rest and slowly descended. Sounds of machinery filled the room. Dinan figured he was supposed to be on the moving platform, so he jumped down onto it. The sight of what had been hidden underneath amazed him. Cylindrical rejuvenation tanks stood 2 meters in height and 1 meter in width, dominating the long walls of the room. 4 of them were put on each side. Next to him was another, way bigger wardrobe. On the other side of the room waited a surgical droid behind the thin kiosk-shaped computer. Dinan winced. You droids are used for torture.
It is one of my capabilities, sir, but my program is to take care of your well-being. Please, step in one of the tanks and leave your clothes in the wardrobe.
Dinan left all of his clothes inside the lone piece of furniture and approached one of the cylinders, putting his right hand on the scanner by the side. The entire tank ascended, making it accessible. As he walked in, the machine returned to its former position. A plastic breathing mask fell onto his head.
Please, make sure the mask safely covers your nose and mouth,
requested the robot. Dinan carefully put on the breathing device, which almost immediately attached firmly to his skin. During a short silence, when there were no more directions to follow, his thoughts that previously lay cast aside began to resurface. Feelings of anger and sadness had appeared, it would seem, out of nowhere. The young man simply was not ready for another traumatic experience. Having enough of pretty much everything, he punched the glass.
Please, stay calm. The probability of a successful procedure is approximately 99%.
Dinan, obviously not happy with what the droid just said, hit the glass several more times. Dark blue liquid steadily filled the tank. By that point, he was already unconscious because of the narcotizing gas sent into his system through the breathing mask, until he slowly started waking up to a place with limited time and space. Dinan couldn't move or even think. It felt like time had passed many times faster than was supposed to. His consciousness consisted only of manifested emotions that without an invitation appeared in unbearable amounts. The most dominant feeling was grief. He lamented about the past, but also recent events. Dinan survived things that humans weren't supposed to survive. things that shouldn't have ever been done to anyone or even exist. The sadness eventually diminished as he defeated it by acceptance of everything life provided. All things that happened were inevitable and an inherent part of his long-desired journey. The troubles, however, didn't end there because a panic attack followed afterward. The suffering he had endured may return in some other way, and that terrified him to the bones. He wouldn't be able to face so much pain again, his inner strength utterly depleted. Dinan's pain worsened even further due to the lack of a suitable coping mechanism. He couldn't shift his thoughts towards something else, and screaming, shaking, or flinching wasn't an option either, since he couldn't move. He just had to endure everything that the depths of his soul unleashed onto his consciousness. In the end, he overcame the anguish through determination. This life was his calling, and a dream come true. He wasn't meant for anything else. Elia and Dinan went hiking on one of the many rocky ridges towering above the deciduous landscape. The green of the environment contrasted with the blue of the nearly cloudless skies. Going on the tour with my guardian friend. One of my last ideas. Where even are we? Elia complained in half-sarcastic undertone. I don't know. In the middle of nowhere? Great. How far is the nearest shuttle? Far. It's more fun that way. Not knowing how we'll get back, or even off of these hills. As she sat down leaning against the giant boulder, she admitted, I suppose you're right. Kind of. What if we're late? Late for what? Bedtime? You can't be serious. Dinan stood nearby, watching the horizon with interest and focus. You know how masters are. Not following their recommendation is the worst thing you could do to them. You know, Dinan, I really need to succeed. I don't have anything else to do. Yeah, me neither. It's gonna be okay though, especially for you. Everyone likes you in there. The girl humbly shook her head. Do you believe in purpose? She suddenly changed to a completely different topic. Some theories suggest that we all have some role to fulfill. A role that perhaps cannot be influenced even by any of our decisions, Elia continued. Dinan's attention, in the meantime, got captured by a little stone beneath his feet. He lifted it from the ground and finally realized that his friend was expecting some kind of response. No, I don't think we have a purpose. I guess we are just here, doing things. Elia wanted to come up with some joke about her friend's philosophical depth, but he suddenly distracted her by throwing a rock into the distance. Dinan's right hand reached out, trying to return the little stone back to his grasp. Unsuccessfully. Frustrated, Dinan lifted another stone from the ground, just to fail once again. The small rock ended up somewhere deep below. Yet, you were born for something greater. Dinan, slightly alarmed, in a flash of a second, turned his eyes towards her as he threw for the third time. There's something wrong, he stated calmly and stretched out his hand. The tiny rock safely returned to its palm. It didn't happen this way. Dinan stomped 2 times on the ground, as if it would help him figure out whether he was asleep. This is a dream, he concluded in the same conversational manner, despite being fully convinced everything around him was just an imagination. Don't let this life take your heart away. It may seem like nothing matters, but the opposite is true. Everything matters, emphasized Elia, her eyes saddened. Dinan woke up trying to catch a breath, his naked body falling to the ground in the emptied tank. Lying on the floor, Dinan tried to figure out what was going on. Please, excuse the inconvenient ending of the procedure. The respiratory mask was supposed to keep you in a standing position until the process was fully finished, requested the surgical droid. Finally, Dinan, in a single intense inhale, finally managed to get some air into his lungs. The glass of the rejuvenation tank had slowly risen, letting its occupant out. Take this, said the psychologist, and threw a bathing robe next to him. Dinan stood up, grabbed the robe, and put it on. It would be decent to give me some privacy, he said, still coughing. Why? We are family now. Your only family, actually, Eller commented, standing nearby. You don't know how right you are, replied Dinan with a hint of sarcasm. It wasn't clear to him why he took the bizarre situation so well. Perhaps it had been a result of the healing procedure. Perhaps he just got used to the treatment there. After all, he did get punched in the face like never before, just so his superior could evaluate the healthiness of his reactions. I do. I read your file. We wouldn't have come, but something strange happened with your body, Coventus quickly explained, not wanting to test Dinan's mood any further. Behind the psychologist stood 2 additional physicians. What? We don't know. But the count of your midichlorians roughly doubled, only to return to normal levels later on. We thought it was going to rip you in half, Eller added a bit more seriously. Well, I'm glad it didn't. Dinan did not look too worried on the outside, but he was deeply troubled inside. Death cannot be denied indefinitely. The next day, Dinan followed Noel to the training hall for an introductory lesson. Eller told me what happened during the rejuvenation process, the Master Jedi informed in a professional tone. Noel Ray didn't have any personal attachments to the initiates. He was at work and it needed to be done right. He was worried if something had happened to you, he would be responsible, the Jedi Master continued. Is he responsible for almost killing me? Dinan asked and instantly regretted the question. He wasn't angry with Eller anymore and didn't want to cast a bad light on him. Noel stayed silent for a moment and mildly sighed. It is better to kill a promising initiate than to let a flawed one inside. The weight of that sentence fell on Dinan's lungs, making them unable to work for a second. Do you have any idea what could have caused it? Wondered Noel after another period of silence. It is strange. It would seem my friend from the academy found her way into my dreams, but it's just an assumption. The concerned Master Jedi immediately stopped and glared straight into Dinan's eyes. You know you cannot keep ties with anyone from your previous life. I do. If something like this should ever happen again, you must tell me immediately, not wait until someone asks. Dinan nodded, and to his joy, no other dramatic discussion followed. They finally arrived in front of the entrance to the training hall. Noel typed in a password, and 2 triangular parts of the oblong gate disappeared into its corners. Both men entered. On the sides of the area were rectangle-shaped openings of approximately human size that harbored various fighting droids and weapons. The thin vertical vents made the resting killer robots partly visible. Marble-like squares of approximately 4 feet in diameter divided the floor into a couple hundred independent entities capable of ascending and descending at any time, effectively creating an unpredictable obstacle course. It's not one of our greatest training grounds, but for today it will suffice. I think you are missing this. Noel pulled the purple crystal lightsaber out of his pocket and tossed it to Dinan. The Jedi's weapon in his gentle but firm grip brought to the young man's life the kind of happiness he hadn't felt for a long time, a love for life. Still, Dinan didn't want to explore the feeling for a second longer, because the dread that his chosen path emitted always lurked within. Instead, he activated the weapon and in a mildly excited yet deeply focused gaze, awaited the forthcoming. Attack! Noel Ray commanded with a green-colored lightsaber ready by his side pointing downwards. Dinan didn't hesitate for a second and rushed forward like a racing vehicle from a scratch line. In the aggressive form, he slashed from all directions, whilst using small leaps to break the opponent's defenses and build up pressure. To his disappointment, the energetic strikes failed to provide a desirable outcome. Efforts to disrupt the Jedi Master's defensive posture resembled that of making an attempt to move a mountain. Strikes were parried vigorously, causing a painful jolt in Dinan's wrists. Failing to build up momentum, an exhausted Dinan stopped attacking. Absence of emotions. Complete stability. You have to learn how to fight in situations unfavorable to you. It is time to light up the fire that burned within you during your last trial, Noel announced, walking from side to side like a restless lion. Painfully tired, Denon closed his eyes and remembered the incident on Tython. Suddenly, he was there, feeling almost everything he had felt in that desperate moment when the negative emotions poured onto him from every direction. He rushed towards his opponent in the same exact manner as in the original event. "Not so fast," Noel said, surprisingly calmly despite facing a reckless Denon, and sent him flying several feet backward by force push. Sliding, he had to support himself against the floor with his right hand, as his entire body tilted toward the ground. The Jedi Master once again started soothing Denon's mind. "This is not a game. Jedi do not keep their emotions in check because they wish to be boring. What you are trying to do is incredibly dangerous. Focus on one single thing. Set it apart from the others." Noel stopped soothing Denon with calming energy, which resulted in a return of instability inside of him. Denon, however, targeted his thoughts solely on the memory of disappointed Elia, asking him whether he had indeed nearly killed a fellow student. She would rather trust him than the entire academy. The reminiscence of letting down such an incredible friend left Denon with intense but regulated, searing pain within his heart. Through the Force, he transformed the small hurting blaze into the powerful fire. The fight continued, and from this point on, the flow of his strikes became more organized. Denon's attacks combined into logical sequences that had power behind them. "Good. Now try to add one more painful thought. Just one, and keep them both at the same level of attention." This time, Denon remembered how much he was missing her and simultaneously pushed away worries that he might never see Elia again. Handling the thoughts of not seeing her ever more would be fiercely difficult, and Denon needed to stay in control. After successfully combining only two hurtful entities, Denon mounted considerable pressure, forcing his opponent on the defensive. "Good!" Noel almost shouted, because the sounds of clashing lightsabers created noise throughout the entire hall. "Now think of something positive, something that gives your pain a resolve or purpose." Denon recalled how it felt to hold its lightsaber once again just a few minutes ago, its sense of fulfillment. Anxiety associated with the path he'd chosen followed right afterward, but this time Denon was ready for it. He didn't deny its existence. On the contrary, he acknowledged it. The young man made an agreement with himself to face the anxiety later, when the time was right and the dreadful feeling really disappeared. Denon, no longer restrained by his inner fears, delved into the memory of reclaimed lightsaber, overcoming his last challenge. The flow of the attack slowed, his wrathful strength slowly faded away. He eventually stopped fighting altogether. Both men were breathing intensely, fighting back serious fatigue. "Good. Let's get you ready for work." Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed our work, please consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to our channel so you'll never miss new content. Also, don't hesitate and let us know what you think in the comments. Until then, may the Force be with you.